Hey everyone, good evening. Happy Easter to those of you that celebrate that, and happy Fertility Day to those who celebrate that, and happy celebration to those who are celebrating anything today. And it's been a long time since I've been on Facebook Live, but decided to come back out here because I think I have some tools and some perspectives that hopefully can serve you during this time. We're all feeling the effects these days of some difficult times, as we know, to state the obvious. So I wanted to come and share what I'm able to share, and hopefully it's a benefit to you, and hopefully it's a benefit to those who you come in contact with on a regular basis. And please feel free to share this if you enjoy it. But here we go. So a little bit of an introduction about what I'm going to be doing, and what I'm going to be doing is meeting once every week at this same time and offering a class. And I'm going to try to keep the classes to under 30 minutes. And in those classes, I'm going to offer one main concept and one practical tool, something that you can actually do to improve the quality of your nervous system, your health, your life, etc. Based on my experience both as a clinical psychotherapist, but also as someone who's been studying and practicing optimal performance for years. And so once a week, Sunday nights, 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time where I live, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, I'm going to be here. Please put your questions and comments below. I'm not going to answer questions and comments live, but I will look at them and then address those issues either in writing or maybe during the next class. And like I said, this will be an ongoing thing once a week, so hopefully we'll build a little momentum and you'll start to gain some practical insights and tools that can really serve you during these challenging times and beyond. So the first concept that I want to work on today is, the title of this is Post-traumatic stress disorder versus post-traumatic growth. So PTSD, raise your hand, raise your virtual hand if you've ever heard of PTSD. Ever heard of post-traumatic stress disorder? I'm assuming that the answer to that is yes. Now, raise your other hand if you've heard of post-traumatic growth. PTG, ever heard of post-traumatic growth? Some of you may have, but it's a lot less common. I wonder why that is. Conspiracy theories aside, the fact of the matter is it's much less known, but you can look up what is post-traumatic growth. And one of the main things that comes out of the research of post-traumatic growth is people that experience traumatic experiences, which to some degree we're all affected by in our life, and particularly in a time like this. But when someone experiences post-traumatic growth, they have the genuine sentiment at the end, or as they've come through that experience, that says, even though I would never want to go through that again, even though I wouldn't wish that on anybody, I am actually somehow grateful for the experience because it's made me better. It's made me more whole. It's made me more in love with my life. It's made me more in love with myself. So post-traumatic growth is actually based on the human capacities of resilience, compassion, empathy, wisdom, kindness, strength. And so this is what I want to focus on. I want to focus on how do we understand the difference between post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic growth, and how do we influence that so that we end up on the post-traumatic growth side of things, even if we do, or not even if, when we do experience the inevitable trauma in our lives. So in order to explain this, we're going to do a little bit of a background on the nervous system, the mechanics of the nervous system. I'll try to keep it simple. I'll try to keep it short. This is absolutely simplified neuroscience here. And so we have our diagrams, which those of you that work with me have seen these pictures many, many times. But we have basically, for all intents and purposes, of course, the brain is an incredibly complex organism. But we have three parts of our brain that we can talk about here usefully: the human brain, the mammalian brain, and the reptilian brain. And right here in this limbic system, which is the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain, is an alarm switch. That alarm switch is the difference between whether or not we go into a state of survival or into a state of thriving. Okay? And really what post-traumatic stress disorder is, to boil it down to the nervous system mechanics, is that the alarm system basically gets stuck in on mode. We get stuck in survival mode. And it's very natural, it's very normal to go into survival mode. In fact, we really need this mechanism, and we need to be able to go into survival mode. But ideally, we're gonna go into survival mode, and then that alarm switch is gonna go off quite quickly once whatever dangerous situation has passed. You know, say we almost get in a car accident and boom, we spike into survival mode, and then, oh, we realize that it was actually not, we're safe and we're okay, so then that alarm switch goes off. Well, in post-traumatic stress disorder, that alarm switch stays stuck on. And when that alarm switch is on, there's only 3 options for the nervous system to operate in. It can only operate in a state of fight, which is related to the emotion of anger. It can operate in a state of flight, which is related to the emotions of fear. And it can operate in a state of freeze, which is related to depression, numbness, lethargy, hopelessness. I'm guessing during this quarantine time, every single one of us have vacillated in and out of anger, fear, and depression, at least a little bit at certain times, okay? However, it starts to become more problematic when we start to get stuck there, and these anger, fear, and depression episodes start to become our norm or our baseline, and then we start having a significant degree of suffering. Now, not to increase the fear, but the facts of the matter is that when we are in this survival mode, and we're in this survival mode too much, too often, too intensely, well, it takes an incredible toll on our immune system. So it's actually counterproductive to what we're hoping for in this difficult time, where we want to have robust immune systems, let alone some health and happiness. We want to have a really strong immune system in case we do come in contact with COVID, and so being in a state of survival, in a state of fight, flight, or freeze on a regular basis is counterproductive to that immune system response. Simply because really when we're in that fight, flight, or freeze state, we are mobilizing the energy required to deal with an immediate threat. According to our neurology and according to our biology, it's like having a tiger in the room. If there's a tiger in the room, my body's not going to spend time fighting the cold or fighting the virus or growing my hair and nails or repairing the cut in my skin or digesting my food. All of these mechanisms are shut off when we're in survival mode because it's danger right now, let me deal with it. That's great if there is a danger right now, let me deal with it. But when that alarm system gets stuck on and we're in our home and we're quarantined and there's no virus around and we're still in that fight, flight, or freeze mode, we are dissipating the energy that we need to actually have a robust health system, a robust immune system, in addition to compromising our quality of life, our happiness, right? Because this survival mode doesn't care about us being happy, it only cares about us surviving, okay? But we might want to be happy during this time, not just survive it, we might want to thrive. Now, some things that we'll get into a little bit later in terms of the practical how-to, in the survival mode, when the alarm switch is on, that's related to being sympathetic nervous system dominant. You don't need to know or memorize the scientific terms, and again, that's an oversimplification of what's going on, but it's useful for us to speak about it this way. And every single time we inhale, we activate the sympathetic nervous system predominantly. Of course, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system are always working in tandem, but every single time we inhale, we're predominantly sympathetic nervous system, SNS, and every time we exhale, we're predominantly parasympathetic nervous system, PNS, okay? So now let's go over to the thriving mode. Well, what is the thriving part of the nervous system responsible for? If the alarm switch is off, regardless of our circumstances, if the alarm switch is off, even if we're in a difficult circumstance, and we're in thriving mode, well then we have access to states of flow, fortitude, and freedom. This increases our immune system. Actually, the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for resting, digesting, healing, feeling, connection, love, empathy, all of these things, creativity, inspiration, higher creative capacities of human thinking, rational thinking. These are all much more accessible when the thriving mode is activated. The thriving aspects of our nervous system are activated. And this is where we're going to be when we're experiencing post-traumatic growth as opposed to post-traumatic stress disorder. Post-traumatic growth, remember, is the experience of resilience. It's like, even though I face this hard time, I still am grateful for it because it taught me something, and it made me stronger. It made me who I really am. So post-traumatic growth is an element of the thriving part of the nervous system. Okay? So, as we said, it is activated every single time we exhale. Okay? So, every single time we exhale, we're predominantly activating the parasympathetic nervous part of our brain and our nervous system. Okay? So now, of all the research on post-traumatic growth, the mindset or attitudinal shift that is demonstrated for people that experience post-traumatic growth versus people that experience post-traumatic stress disorder, who are often the same person, by the way, because often someone who is experiencing PTSD symptoms then goes on to experience post-traumatic growth. But in any event, when they make that shift, one of the things that they have shifted is this key mindset difference. And the difference between people that are still activating the survival part of the brain in difficult times and those that are activating the thriving part of the brain in difficult times is the attitudinal or mindset shift of my adversity is a threat and it's overwhelming, PTSD side, or the adversity is an opportunity and a challenge. Doesn't say it's easy, doesn't say it's not a problem, it doesn't say it's not adversity, but it's an opportunity and it's a challenge. So it may be cliche and it may be things that you've heard before, but the regular, ongoing reminders to ourselves to look at how can I make the best of this? No one's saying it's a positive situation in many ways, although lots of us are focusing on seeing some of the positive things about it. But in my day-to-day life, here in my home, here in my quarantine, when I do go out maybe and go to the grocery store, how do I make the best of it? How do I make the most of it? How do I emerge from this? A question that I'm asking myself. How do I emerge from this period whenever it ends? And the unknown is something that often activates our survival part of our brain. We need to understand that and do something to change that, to switch that over to the thriving mode so that we can actually deal with the situation in a way that is productive and healthy and even makes us bigger, better, stronger, however you want to, whatever terms you want to use there. So again, one of the questions that I'm asking myself is how do I emerge from this healthier, happier, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually stronger and healthier than I've ever been? How do I not only not emerge from quarantine time whenever that happens to end? How do I not only not emerge from that not in worse shape, but not even neutral, in better shape than I've ever been? How do I take the time to meditate, in ways that I haven't been able to fit in my busy schedule before, grow things in the garden, go for walks, spend more time with my family, read books, eat healthy, whatever it is? How do I challenge myself? Because remember, this is the mindset that is key for those that experience post-traumatic growth. Post-traumatic growth mindset is this is an opportunity. This is a challenge. Post-traumatic stress disorder mindset is this is a threat and it's overwhelming. Okay? And now we don't want to shame ourselves. We don't want to beat ourselves up when we find ourselves here. We've all found ourselves here in the last couple weeks. I know I have. But it's a matter of how quickly do we rebound, catch ourselves, and realize that we can do something about it. And that's what I want to share with you for the remainder of this talk, is what we can actually do about it. Something that's practical, not just something that you learn. Before I do that, one more analogy. This mindset shift is an ongoing cultivation. It is not a one-time decision. It is an ongoing decision. And an analogy that I really like is if you have the opportunity ever to work in a garden. If you work in a garden, you understand full well that no matter how robust, no matter how fertile, speaking of day of fertility, no matter how fertile your garden is, if you neglect it for a few weeks, if you don't give it water, and you don't pull weeds, and you don't trim things, it's going to be overcome by weeds. It's going to be overcome by bugs, diseases, etc. That's not because of anything that you did wrong. That's not because you're bad. That's not because you're doomed. It's not because the world hates you or God hates you or any of these things. It's because that's what life does. Life throws at us opportunities for growth, challenges us on a regular basis. This COVID quarantine is a huge challenge, but it doesn't mean that it's an insurmountable one for us psychologically, spiritually, emotionally, physically, and either for us as individuals or as for the world as we work together to create greater solutions or greater ways of living, right? So when you have a garden, you know that cultivation is ongoing. You don't think, oh, one day I'm just going to have the perfect flowers and I'll never need to work on it again. That's not realistic. That's not realistic at all. This is the same with this opportunity, challenge, mindset shift. It's a decision that needs to be made over and over and over and over again. And the tools of which there are many, and I'll share with you one today, that I think is the most practical, easy thing that I've learned in a long time, to switch from sympathetic nervous system dominance to parasympathetic nervous system dominance, to activating the thriving part of the brain as opposed to the surviving part of the brain. That's something that can be done, that needs to be done regularly. It's not a one-time switch. It's a many-time switch. It's the many times I go into states of anger, fear, and depression every single day that I catch myself and I switch off the alarm switch and I turn on the thriving mode through my own will, and then an exercise of my will, adding practical tools to that decision. That needs to be done maybe 50 times a day, maybe 20 times a day, maybe 100. It doesn't matter. It is an ongoing cultivation, and the more you cultivate it, the more your garden does become robust. The more you spend time in that, pulling weeds and planting seeds, you can create a permaculture food forest that does take care of itself. So there is a point, perhaps down the road, where it is easier, for sure. Right now is not one of these times. This is one of our challenging times. Our garden is getting overgrown with weeds, and I got to work in it every single day in order to stay healthy and to stay happy, okay? So let's come back to this point about every single time we inhale, we activate the sympathetic nervous system, which is related to the survival mode, fight, flight, and freeze, anger, fear, and depression. And every single time we exhale, we activate the parasympathetic nervous system, flow, fortitude, and freedom, increased immunity, post-traumatic growth experience, okay? Resilience, opportunity, challenge. And the more you pack meaning into these exercises, the more you know, oh, this is what I'm doing. The more you'll actually get the benefits. So I'm going to repeat myself. In subsequent weeks, I'll also repeat these concepts, and we'll keep adding layers so that you have a really, really healthy, strong toolbox that you can go to at any time. So with this inhale-exhale thing, it makes perfect sense, and many of you probably have already caught on. If I simply train myself to breathe out for longer amount of time than I breathe in, then I will become more and more parasympathetic nervous system dominant. So you can train yourself, for example, to breathe at a 1-to-2 ratio. For every 3 seconds, for every 3 seconds I breathe in, I breathe out for 6 seconds. For every 4 seconds I breathe in, I breathe out for 8 seconds. For every 1 second I breathe in, I breathe out for 2 seconds. It doesn't matter. This 1-to-2 ratio is a really general good idea to practice all the time. When you're doing the dishes, when you're taking a shower, when you're, any single time you remember to, you can practice this 1-to-2 breath, okay? Now, to get even more powerful than that, you can do one of two types of breathing that I've practiced both of, one of which I learned quite recently is incredibly easy and phenomenal. And the other one I've known for a while and is also easy. And so I'll give you the choice as to which one you like best, or you can try them both interchangeably. And both of them accomplish the elongation of the exhale. And that is the key here. However, there's something to the sounds that we make that also have effect, So the first one, I'm going to just show it to you before I explain it. And it looks like this. And my kids like it because we call it the Darth Vader breath, but also calling it fog breathing. And it looks like this. I breathe in, and then And so what I'm doing there is I'm making the sound that I would make to fog a pair of glasses. So that's why I'm calling it fog breathing. And so what that does is, if you're familiar with Chinese medicine, and this is just my felt experience of it as well, but if you're familiar with Chinese medicine, this is a healing sound that is related to the heart. This is a healing sound that's related to the heart. And so this sense of overwhelm that we feel is also related to the heart in Chinese medicine. So when we make this sound, we are relaxing this sense of overwhelm that is related to post-traumatic stress disorder and the SNS and the mindset attitude when we are in fight, flight, or freeze, where everything feels like a threat and we feel overwhelmed. What I find happens is when I do this breath 5 or 6 times, all the muscles in my chest just relax and release. And there's a softening. And I didn't even know that I was holding the tension until it releases. And then I'm like, oh, wow, that's different. That feels great. Another thing that happens is my mind chatter really, really quiets down after I do this 4, 5, or 6 times. And so I get myself into a thriving mode. I do something practically to make this shift. I don't wait for circumstances. Heck, circumstances aren't changing right now for quite a while. So waiting for the external world to change for me to be in a thriving mode is not going to be a very good idea right now. I want to do stuff on my own to change so that I can activate better immunity and have a better quality of life with experiencing states of flow, fortitude, and freedom. Excuse me, I'm losing my mic here. There it is. So again, it looks like this, and you can try it with me. Ready? So what I'm going to do is when I breathe in, I'm going to try to breathe in deep into my belly, even though I'm breathing in relatively fast. It's not a struggling fast, but it's a relatively quick inhale because I'm looking to extend that ratio between inhale to exhale. And as you practice more, you might breathe in for 2 seconds and breathe out for 25 seconds. And trust me, you're going to feel relaxed if you do that 3 or 4 times. You might even yawn, which is going to be proof positive that you've activated the parasympathetic nervous system. Yawning is actually a really positive sign here. So if you do yawn, embrace it, go for it, love it, feel it, enjoy it. So it looks like this. Ready? Start with me. Breathe out and in. And then again, into the belly. Fog breathing, like you're fogging a glass. If you get going at a different time frame than me, no worries, just start again. Feel that softening in the chest, your shoulders relax. That feels nice. So if you didn't quite get to the sweet spot, it's a little awkward, you're just learning it, no worries. Again, the more you practice, the better you get. Tools don't work unless you use them. A tool that is in the toolbox collecting dust is never, the hammer in the toolbox that's collecting dust is never going to bang in a nail. And the more you get good at using a hammer, the more that simple motion, you can bang a nail in with one stroke. But at the beginning, you might miss, you might bang your thumb, you might bend the nail, and that's okay. That doesn't mean that the tool doesn't work. It means that you just need a little bit more practice with it. So that's one way to extend the length of your exhale, to make a healing sound that is specifically related to heart and overwhelm and relieving the overwhelm and the muscular tension in the chest and heart area and activating the thriving mode, okay? Another way, similar concept, but has a little bit of a different physiological effect, and this actually activates natural kind of antihistamine, so this is great if you have allergies, actually. I no longer have allergies, and my mom, who's probably watching this because she's my #1 fan, knows that I have had allergies my whole life, and I haven't had them in a few years, largely due to some of these breathing exercises. And so this one is humming. And so humming both creates this this noise that is very soothing to the nervous system. We instinctively hum to our children, but it's also naturally activates antihistamine response, and it also has the added value of extending the length of the exhale. So I breathe in. Let's do it again. Let's do it together. Exhale. Breathe in. And then if you want and you like it, you can get weird and turn that into an om, or think of that those ways if you practice yoga or things like that. But it doesn't have to. It doesn't. That sound is actually, if you are familiar with the yoga tradition, is actually one of the things that creates power in a lot of the mantras. They often end in that sound for this particular reason that we're talking about right now. But we don't need to do that. We don't need to worry about any of that. If that's not cool for us, we just need to hum. And actually, humming in general, humming your favorite song, humming in general is really, really soothing for the nervous system, really good for activating thriving mode, really good for nasal decongestion and for allergies. And all this is going to boost the immune system. Plus, humming a good tune just makes you happy, right? It's obvious. We know it. We can use these tools that are obvious. It doesn't need to be complex. In fact, the simpler the better, in my opinion. So let's do it again. Inhale. All right, as you practice that, your exhale will get longer and longer and longer, and you will get more and more relaxed. And this is really nice, like if I wake up in the middle of the night, and sometimes my mind is busy, I'm worried about something, I just do this until I fall asleep. And it's really, really, really nice way to just drift back asleep and turn off that alarm switch. So to recap, the main mindset difference, the main attitudinal difference is a decision that needs to be made over and over and over again between post-traumatic stress disorder and post-traumatic growth. Is in post-traumatic stress disorder, adversity is a threat and I feel overwhelmed. In post-traumatic growth, adversity is an opportunity and I am up to the challenge. Okay? Every single time I inhale, I activate the surviving part of the brain. Every single time I exhale, I activate the thriving part of the brain. So if I practice extending the length of my exhale, I will activate the thriving part of the nervous system, which is responsible for immunity, resting, digesting, healing, feeling, loving, connecting, happiness, joy, inspiration, poetry, creativity, music, all of the things that we love. And this is not to say that I'm beating up this guy. We need the survival part of our brain, no doubt about it. But it can get stuck on, and that's what happens with PTSD. The alarm switch stays stuck on, and it doesn't go off even when the danger has gone away. That creates all sorts of health complications. In my opinion, is actually the root of all disease, but that's a pretty radical opinion in some ways. And but it keeps us stuck in states of anger, fear, and depression. Anger, fear, and depression. So you can do something about it. You have tools. You have more power than you know. With practice, these tools become more and more effective. There's no overdoing what we're talking about here. You can't hurt yourself, except I will add, don't do it while you're driving. Don't do it when you're in water. And that's it. We'll see you next week. I'm going to keep to my promise to be under 30 minutes. I'm at 29 minutes right now, I think. And so I love you all. I wish you the very best. We're all in this together, and together we thrive. I will be starting daily morning guided meditations at 9 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. I'm not sure when I'm going to start those, sometime this week. That's going to be every weekday thing, just for 10 minutes. It's going to be just the practice, not a lot of the intellect. And so that's what we're going to do. In addition to this, I'm going to have Monday to Friday daily meditations, and actually my family, my children are going to join. So have your kids come if you want. And it's going to be just a 10-minute guided meditation, so we can all be in this together and start our day in a good way. And then every Sunday evening at 6 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, we're going to keep doing this. Please feel free to add questions, and Yeah, good point. Don't do the deep breathing in the public right now. But hey, maybe not. If you're 6 feet away and you do some deep breathing and then you give someone a nice smile, because people are a little bit tense out there. So let's share the love and let's share our tools. And this is a practical, easy, good one that is good for anyone to do. So love you all, and thank you.